so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast presented by Heartwork Brewing. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is T.J. Inman, and we're here previewing Indiana's trip to Penn State. But first, a word from our friends over at Heartwork Brewing.
At Heartwork Brewing, we are fiercely independent. From our variety of craft beers to our artisan Neapolitan-style pizzas, we put our heart into our work. We offer a full menu of draft beers, from our award-winning lagers to IPAs, sours, even our house-made seltzer. Our Northside Taproom has a variety of events and spaces for groups of all sizes. Heartwork is proud to be a locally and veteran-owned business here in Bloomington, just a stone's throw from Memorial Stadium and Assembly Hall at 1703 North College Avenue. Visit heartworkbrewing.com for hours and event info.
Awesome. All right, TJ, we are back talking football after talking basketball yesterday. Indiana comes into this week 9-0, second in the AP poll. We'll find out tonight where they stand in the college football playoff rankings release at, I hope, 8 o'clock, but they probably put it on at a halftime of a basketball game, so who the heck knows. It's also on ESPN. And they have not figured their crap out with YouTube TV. So we'll get that done. They go to Penn State, who is 3-5, lost 5 straight, 0-5 in the Big Ten, fired their coach, haven't found a new coach, have gotten a lot of other coaches, some big contract extensions as well. But let's first talk a little bit about Indiana's win over at Maryland. How did you see that game going? Did you get a little nervous in the first 5 minutes when Drew Evans was ruled out, no Aiden Fisher, right, and Fernando Mendoza throws a pick?
Yeah, I think that there was a little feeling of anxiousness, that it was going to be a bit more of a difficult afternoon than we had originally hoped, particularly because of those injuries. It's something that IU has been fortunate. We have not really had to go through a lot of reshuffling in the lineup due to injury. The offensive line, that was the first time that they've had to rotate at all outside of having a lead and being able to shuffle guys in with that big cushion. So there was some uncertainty about how they'd respond to that. I think that the defense deserves a lot of credit for the way that they kept Indiana in the game is not accurate, but the way that they made plays until the offense got into rhythm.
I think Signetti put it perfectly. They weathered the storm because of the defense.
You're right.
Yeah, they weathered the storm because of the defense, got them into a safe harbor, to use the boating terms, especially since you're near Baltimore. And then the offense took off, and that was the engine that cruised you to the end.
I think and this was something that we talked about briefly because it wasn't a huge concern, but it was, hey, it'd be nice if the running game really got going ahead of the Michigan State game. Well, these past 2 games, the running game has really gotten going. Indiana just pounded the rock against Maryland mercilessly. I don't feel like Maryland quit, but Indiana demoralized them in that second half by, hey, we don't need to do anything fancy. We don't need to do anything schematically. We're just going to hand it off to Roman Hemby, Kayvon Black, Kobe Martin. Alberto Mendoza is going to get in here and rip off a 53-yarder. We're just going to run it right down your throat, and Maryland couldn't do anything about it. The defense forces turnovers and really that avalanche in the third quarter that just put the game completely out of hand. The strip, I guess not a sack, but the strip tackle by Lewis Moore, or Devin Boykin, excuse me. Devin Boykin gets it, takes it back. The next offensive play for Maryland, Byron Baldwin gets into the act with a strip tackle that he recovers.
Jamari Sharp poked it out.
Okay. Yep. And Byron Baldwin recovered it. 2 plays later, Indiana punches it in. It was 21 points in something like 2.5 minutes of game time, if that. It got out of hand very quickly. And Indiana really did what they do entire time under Kurt Cignetti. There's a team that you have your foot on their neck, you don't let up.
No.
You just take advantage, step down, and say, okay, you gave us a crack here. We're going to shut the door. That's it. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. The obvious concern coming out of the game is the hamstring of Elijah Surratt. He was, for those that didn't see it, exits the game early. The interception, he's kind of breaking to the outside, and I think did not get out as far as Mendoza thought he was going to. The defender gets in front of him, gets the interception. Surratt comes back into the game, does not stay out there very long, goes back to the medical tent a second time, and then we don't see him for the rest of the day. We don't know what his status is going to be for Saturday, but that
Kurt Cignetti said yesterday it was day to day, but he also said that Aiden Fisher was probable for the Maryland game.
And he didn't play, which I think, could Aiden Fisher have played against Maryland? I think so.
Probably.
He went through the bulk of warmups, did not go through the final, the final team lineup warmups, sat those out, which was the indication that he wasn't going to play.
Yep.
But yeah, he was right there. I'd certainly expect him to play against Penn State. But Surratt, that's a hamstring with the wide receiver. That's really scary. And that's something that I think is the biggest concern coming out of the game. But just another mature performance from the Indiana football team to go on the road, deal with some adversity, and just handle your business without any drama whatsoever.
Yeah, it was one of those where, like, the first 10 real-time minutes of the game, you kind of felt like you were back in the Tom Allen era for a second. Fast start by Maryland. You had a whole bunch of injuries. Offensive line couldn't block their defensive line, and then Kirk Cignetti got into his kitchen and went to work.
Yeah.
He talked about it yesterday at his press conference that during those times, during the first 3 times, coaches are on the headset communicating. He's talking about Bostad and Chandler Whitmer about, hey, what do we need to do on offense to be successful? Obviously, they did that. They had a quarterback draw where Fernando Mendoza is literally high-fiving Pat Coogan at like the 5-yard line, and there is nobody in the TV screen.
That was an awesome play call.
Yeah. So they took care of business. Let's get to Penn State. So this game, first, we are doing a watch party over at Heartwork Brewing. They do open at noon, so we'll start at noon. We'll put up their beer specials and happy hour specials. I know they have 5 o'clock pizza and all that stuff. So come on out. They have a lot of video games, TVs, all that stuff. They do allow people under 21 as well. So come on out, watch it with us, and then Ben and Nick will have their live post-game reaction show afterwards, and hopefully it's a win. But TJ, at the beginning of this season, there were 3 games that you kind of circled, 4 games you kind of circled on IU's schedule with Illinois, 3 on the road. This is that final one. with Penn State, but you expected it to be a top 10, at least top 10 matchup, where if there was an unranked team, it could have been Indiana. Nobody expected this out of Penn State to lose 5 in a row in Big Ten play. But it is a Fox broadcast. They still have a lot of NFL talent with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, and some guys on the defense, Dennis Denai Sutton. Dom DeLuca is back there as well on defense. So where is this a zombie Penn State team? Their coaching search seems to have gone nowhere. They've swung and missed on everybody who's been mentioned. And their maybe as far as we know, they've swung and missed.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm interested to see what fans come out for Penn State. Is this going to be to go back to the older IU games, like, hey, we're playing a top 5 team. We might have a shot to beat them. Let's come out early. And then if they get up big, if the other team gets up big, you leave. And that we'll get into that on my keys to the game. But what do you see about Penn State that, one, makes them dangerous? Is Kurt Cignetti was pulling out ESPN FPI rankings yesterday to gas up Penn State. And then 2, just how big of a zombie Penn State team is this?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at, post James Franklin, because I don't think that you can necessarily evaluate and gain anything by saying, all right, let's go back and look at what UCLA did against them. Let's look at what Oregon, a common opponent. Let's look at what they did against Oregon. Doesn't feel particularly relevant at this point of the season.
And Drew Aller is out for the season.
Yeah,
too, so
exactly.
Different quarterback.
Yep. So none of that feels relevant. I think you have to say, all right, look at their game at Iowa. They lost by a point. And then look at against Ohio State. They were down by 3 at halftime, 17-14, before getting blanked 21-0 in the second half. And it really felt like Ohio State could have made that more lopsided, and were respectful, I guess, of the situation, and coasted to that finish. Did not exert anything more than they had to get the win, which is understandable. So I think that you have to say Penn State did show effort. They did show fight at Iowa. I don't think they played great, but Iowa's a good team. We know it's tough to win there. And I think that Penn State put a lot into that game to try and get that win, and they came up short. Then they go to Ohio State. And obviously it's okay. It's a big opportunity. Playing Ohio State, you mentioned the NFL talent. Yeah, that's a lot of guys that want good film on their draft tape going against Ohio State. Makes sense. And they battled for a half. But once there was that deficit start to develop, there was nothing left in the tank, particularly for the offense. So I do expect Penn State to show up for this game. I do not think it's going to be a team on quit watch where they lay down and just let you run all over them for 70-0 or something. But I also think it's fair to say that if you can get a lead and, as you mentioned, quickly take that crowd out of it and not let them get any type of belief that it could be a special day for them to remember as kind of a signature for Terry Smith, the interim coach. I think that will be an important factor. You mentioned the NFL talent. There certainly is. There's a couple of offensive linemen that I think would get long looks. Katron Allen is one of the best running backs in the country. Him and Singleton are a really good duo, but it's been Katron Allen's show particularly since the coaching change. It was headed that way before as Allen continued to outperform Singleton, but it has really been that way. It's basically a like 4-to-1 share for carries in favor of Allen over Singleton. He's looks like a tougher runner, looks like he has better vision than Nicholas Singleton does, and Singleton was not hitting those home run plays. And that's Penn State's offense currently lacks the ability to create chunk plays. They have really struggled without Drew Alver, and even with him, they've struggled to create big explosive plays. It wasn't coming from Nicholas Singleton as it has in the past. It's clear that they really miss Tyler Warren as just a Swiss Army knife, big playmaker. And the receivers that they went out to get in the transfer portal, it just hasn't worked. Trevor Pena, Hudson. I think the
Penn
only
State
one
ranks 17th out of 18 teams and plays over 20 plus yards.
Yeah,
with 23, and the only ones in front behind them is Wisconsin.
Yeah,
who's awful.
I think the only receiver that you would look at and say he has met expectations is Devontae Ross, transfer from Troy. Given the quarterback limitations, I think he's had a fine season. But Andy Kotelnicki, who was a hot name as an offensive coordinator, has not found an ability to create explosive plays. The interim coach, Terry Smith, mentioned during his press conference they want to throw the ball vertically against IU's defense. They want to create that. I imagine their game plan is try to get something going on the ground with Katron Allen to limit possessions and drain the clock and then hit a few big play action passes over the top. That's a good plan. I understand it. The issue with that going against IU's defense is Indiana has been really, really good for almost 2 full seasons now against opposing running backs. They don't really consistently give up yards. We've seen them give up a few explosive plays to running quarterbacks, but opposing running backs have not really caused Indiana very many problems since Bryant Haynes and Pat Coons have arrived in Bloomington. So unless Penn State's offense can find a way to reverse that, I'm not really sure where the success for them is going to come. You know that IU is going to bring pressure against this backup quarterback, a redshirt freshman, Ethan Grunkemeyer. He was an all-state kid out of Ohio. It's not like he's a scrub out there. He does have talent, but inexperienced. And we've seen what Indiana did to an inexperienced quarterback last week in Malik Washington. I think it's fair to say Washington, 1, has more experience, and 2, probably has more raw talent than Grunkemeyer does. But IU overwhelmed him and confused him and forced him into mistakes. I think you're going to be looking for the same type of thing. You shut down the run game, force them into down and distance that is disadvantageous for Penn State to run, force them to pass, and that's where I think you can really make hay against Penn State's offense. Unless they find a way to create some explosive plays, I don't think they move it consistently against IU.
Yeah, and I think if you get Aiden Fisher back, who Signetti said he's pretty optimistic that he'll play.
Yeah.
That, you put on a little bit more of an athletic linebacker who could get out to those swing passes that Maryland took advantage of. And you don't have, Jeff Utzinger played well, but he's not Aiden Fisher. And
one thing I think we want to mention, I do anyway, Caden Turner. is a guy that has taken some lumps, right? As to when's he going to break through, what's going on with him. He's a transfer candidate. Like we thought he was going to transfer because we didn't think he was going to see the field. And it didn't look like he was going to see the field, but an injury allows Caden Turner to get on the field, and he makes a big play with an interception, and it just really sucks. It really sucks that on that play, by far the best of his collegiate career, right? He gets an opportunity, makes the most of it, but gets hurt on the play. Obviously my heart goes out to him because that sucks. The guy works really hard to get himself onto the field and makes the most of it, and then he's out.
Yeah, he made a great play. He faked coming in for a blitz, dropped back into coverage, made a leaping grab.
Yep.
TV broadcast said he felt something pop in his calf.
Yep.
Signetti, after the game, said there was no significant injuries coming out of Maryland. Reiterated that yesterday during his press conference. I don't know what a significant injury is. Does that mean it's automatic out for a couple weeks or out for the season or stuff like that? But yeah, Caden Turner was getting that chance, and I think if he can come back, if Aiden Fisher plays against Penn State, you could probably rest Caden Turner. And we've seen with these calf injuries that turn into Achilles injuries that suck. But if you could add Caden Turner to that linebacking rotation, it becomes that much deeper, especially when you get down the stretch of the season with Wisconsin, Penn State, teams that you expect Indiana to win big against, to where you don't have to play Aiden Fisher into the fourth quarter, and you could get them ready for and he's played well on special teams too.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get him ready for that Big Ten title game, for the playoff run, for whatever it is. It's the depth is there in terms of they have the people. It's getting them on the field and getting them the experience to where we can see it. Aiden Fisher was a question mark in terms of, this linebacker group could be pretty deep if Caden Turner turns into that. But no, I feel terrible for the kid because he's put in so much work. Dad is a big follower of the site and the show. So all he needed was a shot, got his shot, made a heck of a play, and unfortunately got hurt. Hopefully he's back this season. Let's take a look at Penn State's defense. And we could throw special teams in there as well. So I went back to the Iowa game and looked at how they scored. They scored on a 35-yard return block kick and then 2 Katron Allen touchdowns. Their defense, it doesn't have like the superstar that they've had the last. There's no Micah Parsons. There's no whoever the guy. Who's the guy? The guy who went to the Giants this year. Blanking on his name, but he also wore number 11, which is a legacy number at Penn State. But they're allowing 20. Yeah, Abdul Carter. They're allowing 21.8 points per game, which is up about 5.5 points from last year.
Mm-hmm.
They only allowed 13.5 points in 2023. It's been a kind of a disappointing season there. They're allowing 4.18 yards rushing, which is very un-Penn State-like. They allowed 3 yards rushing per carry last year. They only have 5 interceptions, 12 touchdown passes against. Average yard per play on offense is 5.07. Last year, when they made a run to the playoff, 4.67.
Mm-hmm.
And they got timely plays in that SMU playoff game from Dom DeLuca, who's back. But they are missing those superstar defenders that we've been so used to seeing at Penn State.
Yeah, what Penn State always seemed to have was a stud linebacker and some sort of elite pass rusher, like a game record as a pass rusher. They were hoping Dennis Sutton could be that guy. He's got 2 sacks on the year. In fact, they've got 5 players with 2 sacks, but one of them is, I think, would have been or was their best defender, Tony Rojas. He's out for the rest of the season. They lost him. Might have been in the Oregon game. I don't recall, but it was right in the middle of the season before things really, as they were going south. Tony Rojas,
he's only played in 4 games at linebacker, and he's still the 3rd leading tackle for loss guy on the team.
Yeah, he was their green dot guy. He was their leader on defense, expected to be sort of their version of Aiden Fisher. He was an all Big Ten linebacker. They sorely missed him. The run defense, it's still okay. The secondary can be had. We saw that last week as Julian Sayin went off. I do think that there's an opportunity for Indiana to find some success through the air. I think the biggest issue with the Penn State defense has been just a lack of big plays from the defense. So that's the lack of tackles for loss, the lack of sacks, the lack of interceptions. It's just they do not have those impact guys on the defensive end. It's a solid group, but not special.
Same at safety. They usually have a playmaking safety or corner. They only have 5 interceptions. 3 of them have come from a defensive back, 2 from defensive tackles, which I think could be an underrated part of this game. We've seen Fernando Mendoza's balls get tipped at the line of scrimmage, or passes. Sorry, that's going to get flagged by YouTube. Passes get tipped at the line of scrimmage. Oh, good, do well on TikTok though. Passes get tipped at the line of scrimmage. There were 3 or 4 against Maryland. UCLA also tipped the pass that got picked off. IU kind of lucked out on one of them with Riley Nowakowski made the catch between like 6 Maryland defenders. But that's something that IU needs to keep an eye on, because that's where this game can turn, is with a turnover, with a big special teams play by Penn State. And what I'm interested to see, TJ, is what this crowd looks like. Because the last time they were home, I believe it was against Northwestern. And this is the interim head coach's Terry Smith's first home game. Yes, it's against the number 2 team in the country, but it's a noon game. Are all the students going to be there? Look, Penn State is a pain in the butt to get to. If you're a Penn State fan going, hey, let's go to the game, are you driving that couple hours to go to this? Are you putting in that effort? Now, there'll be stadium holds, 105,000? Should at least be 70,000. There's still going to be a ton of people there. But looking at the secondary market, tickets are relatively cheap. But I want to see how this fan base is frustrated. They were booing James Franklin early and often in the season. They came home to Northwestern, which was homecoming. The fans who are usually there early, the stadium looked like prime Tom Allen 2023 end of the season at the start of the game. Booed, chanted, fired James Franklin. Just how bought into this team is this crowd. That's what I want to see as well. And I also want to see how many IU fans make the trip. There was, according to Zach Osterman, close to 10,000 IU fans at Maryland, which is 20% of the stadium, just about. Give or take a couple on.
Yeah, you heard him on TV. You did.
Yeah, and you heard him at Oregon. You kind of heard him at Iowa. Now, there was small Iowa does a good job of placing the IU fans all over the place. But you heard him at Iowa, and even last year, you heard him at Ohio State. You heard him at you definitely heard him at the Rose Bowl. So I want to see how many IU fans make the trip. Let's go to key matchup. TJ, what is your key matchup here?
I'm going to go the obvious one is Katron Allen against IU's defensive line. But I'm going to go with Fernando Mendoza against his Penn State secondary. you have the individual matchup, comparison, if you will, of what the two Heisman frontrunners do against the same defense going back to back. Julian Sayin had a really good day against Penn State last week. Now, that was in Columbus. There was really good weather. Who knows if it'll be the same thing? Who knows what IU's game plan will be compared to what Ohio State's is? IU runs it better than Ohio State does. So they've got that to lean on where the Buckeyes don't always. But still, just at a baseline level, there is a comparison between what Julian Sayin did against the defense versus what Mendoza does. Add in the uncertainty surrounding Elijah Surratt and his availability for this game. And I think it should be very interesting to watch Indiana's passing game, which the numbers have not really been there the past couple of weeks. We know the reason for that.
Well,
the game
won games by 45 points, and people are already yelling at Cignetti for running up the score.
Right.
They passed once in the second half last week.
Yes. Yeah, and the backups were in, literally the backups, not just, hey, Fernando out, Alberto in. No, it was backup offensive line, backup defensive line.
Third string running back. You had Charlie Becker and LeBron Bond and
almost all second half.
For Jonathan Brady in there and all that stuff. So
still, from a national perspective, the numbers are what they are the last 2 weeks with the passing game. And for the dumb Heisman voters, the counting stats could end up mattering. Now, that's not to say, hey, you should go out and try to get Fernando 400 yards. No. But I think that it will be very interesting because I expect Penn State to try and load up the box. I do expect that. Because
I think that Maryland tried to take away the pass, and Indiana ran it down their throat.
Yeah.
You saw.
I think Penn State will do the opposite.
Which is what Michigan State did, and you saw what Indiana did to Michigan State, and that's what makes this Indiana team so good. You want to take and Mendoza said this after you want to take away the pass, we'll shove it down your throat or somewhere else for 400 yards rushing.
If I were defensive coordinator. If I were a defensive coordinator against Indiana, they would score 1,000,000 points on me. But my game plan going into it would be to try to take away or limit the run and force Indiana to pass, particularly if I wasn't sure if Elijah Surratt was fully healthy to go for this game. That's how I would start it, and then just hope and pray that I can get a couple sacks, that I can force a fumble, that I can get a couple of mistakes from Mendoza and pick off a pass or two and hope I've got a chance in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
that's
make
what I
him
would
throw
do.
A few YOLO balls and stuff like that. But that's, Indiana's been very, very good at, hey, you're going to take away the run, well, we're going to pass it on you. Charlie Becker stepped in well for Elijah Surratt. EJ Williams got rolled up on there too, but I think he came back in. And things like that. But you have guys, LeBron Bond stepped in. You have Jonathan Brady, who I don't think they use enough on offense because they have the top 3 wide receivers there with Williams, Surratt, and Cooper. You could use him. Davion Chandler has played. I do believe the plan is to redshirt him, but this is game. If you need him, you put him in because the stakes are too high, and that's that's the key to this game too. Is this is kind of the last real big road bump you have. Now, look, going to Purdue is not going to be easy, even though they stink. It's a rivalry game. Anything could happen in the seventh circle of hell.
Give them credit. Give them credit. They are still fighting, and they gave Michigan all they could handle, which perhaps says more about Michigan than it does Purdue. But Purdue will not lie down and just let IU do whatever they want like they did last year. I don't think they might not be able to stop it, but I do expect some effort. Wisconsin,
This is a game that if guys are 70, 80% healthy, I think you give them a go. Like if Penn State was last week, I think Aiden Fisher plays. If Eliza Surratt is 80%, you get him to start the game at least. Now, if you're playing Wisconsin and he's at 80%, maybe you sit him out, get him ready for the rest of the postseason.
We might find out how they approach it next week. We might. Yeah.
So, my matchup to watch is Indiana special teams against Penn State special teams. Penn State special teams are really good. So are Indiana's, and I think that's where this game could flip if Penn State special teams can make a play. They blocked the field goal and returned it for a touchdown. Now that was right before like halftime, or it was a long field goal attempt from Iowa. That was probably a dumb field goal attempt by Iowa. But that's where the game's giving the offense a shorter field, taking points off the board from IU, getting a big return, blocking a punt, or getting a penalty on IU on special teams. That to me is my matchup to watch. Let's go. IU will raise the victory flag if. I'll lead off here, TJ. I think Indiana needs to start fast. This is, a fan base that's probably on life support for the season. And if Indiana starts fast, they will get dejected really early. Now, if Indiana starts like they did against Maryland, you're injecting some hope into that Penn State fan base to where, hey, we drove 3 hours or 4 hours or 2 hours or however many hours to go to this. We're going to be loud and we're going to have a fun time. And, hey, if we knock off the number 2 team, great. But if Indiana jumps out like they did against Illinois or some of these other games, like Iowa, they jumped out to an early lead. Oregon, they jumped out and made plays. You could take this crowd or whatever the crowd is out of it.
Yep, I think that's very valid. For me, it's going to be if Indiana controls the line of scrimmage. The only chance that I see Penn State has in this game outside of IU just being incredibly sloppy with the ball is if Penn State can, number one, limit Indiana's running game, and number two, just control that clock by churning out Katron Allen 5 yards a carry.
Yep.
If they can give him the ball, let's say, give him the ball 25 times and give Singleton like 12 to 15 carries and then mix in a couple of others. So have 45 to 50 carries and get 4 to 5 yards a pop. Then it becomes a scary game for Indiana because, as we saw against Iowa, when those possessions shrink and the amount of possessions that you have goes down, it gets nervous, right? It gets
even against Michigan State now. IU did a great job of scoring, but they only had three possessions in the first half. Where if you miss on one of them, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and it begins to feel like you are walking a tightrope without any net below you, because if you mess up one time on offense, it's going to be 8 minutes of game time before you get the ball back. And before you know it, you're in a tight game in the fourth quarter. If Indiana can control the line of scrimmage and Penn State's unable to do that, unable to shrink that game down, then I like Indiana's chances to run away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird saying that Indiana is 13.5, 14.5 point favorite.
At a place they've never won.
Yes, but here's something I've said since the beginning of the season and why I thought IU had a better chance of winning at Penn State than they did at Oregon. Penn State, now James Franklin is gone, but in his tenure, the game after Ohio State has always kind of been a hiccup game. And it's always, taken them. We saw it in 2023 where Indiana probably should have beat them there. And we've seen it before where they hype up this Ohio State game, think they're going to win, get their souls crushed, and come back and just go through the motions a little bit until somebody needs a big play in the fourth quarter. I don't know if that's going to be
that's what happened
year.
against Oregon this year.
Yes,
that's why they lost to UCLA.
Yes. So I don't know with the new coaching staff. I don't think the stakes were as high against Ohio State, and maybe that, like you said, against Oregon, that's already happened. So we'll see. It's what zombie Penn State team shows up.
Yeah,
is going to be real interesting. Let's do best bets, TJ. I'll go first here. I like the first quarter over of 10.5. I think if Penn State's going to score, they're going to score early. And I do think Indiana gets on the board early. So a touchdown on each way easily covers this.
Yep, I like that quite a bit. I'm just going Indiana to cover. I understand all of the history of this matchup and the history of Happy Valley being a very unhappy place for Indiana. None of that matters to Curt Cignetti. None of it matters to this particular team. They are wearing an IU football jersey, but they are not weighed down by the baggage of the past whatsoever.
Yep.
All that they have done so far this year is answer every single challenge that has been put in front of them. This is another challenge. It's another talented team. This is probably the second, even without Drew Aller, the second most talented team from top to bottom of the roster that IU will have faced after Oregon. That doesn't mean that they're the best or the second best, but just from a pure talent perspective, Penn State does have the ability to hang in there with Indiana. But I see no reason to doubt whether or not this IU team will be ready, whether or not they'll be locked in, whether or not they will have a good game plan to address whatever Penn State comes at them with, and then have good counters for whatever Penn State has that works. We've seen it all year from this coaching staff and this team. I'm going to keep rolling with it. IU to cover. I'll go ahead and roll into my prediction. I do not think Penn State will consistently be able to run the ball against IU's defense. As a result, I don't see much success for their offense. I will go the Nittany Lions scoring a late touchdown plus an early touchdown, which we have seen. Teams have gotten points early. IU adjusts, then they don't score until maybe late. I'll go with that. Penn State 14. IU's offense finds success through the air and through the ground. Indiana, I'm going to go 42. 42 to 14 with just a little bit of Ohio State beat them 38-14. We'll do a little bit better.
Okay. It's I didn't take that into account of that. We're going to compare it to Ohio State and it's 38-14.
That doesn't matter. It doesn't at all, and it shouldn't. It's about getting a win, moving on. That's all. But in my head,
I think this is a game that, like you said, this coaching staff, until they prove otherwise, will have this team ready. They will have a good game plan, and they're going to be laser focused. They don't care that they've never beaten Penn State at Penn State, and if they do, it's probably motivation to say, "Oh well, nobody thinks we're going to beat Penn State because we've never won there before." Because Cignetti's a master of that. I do think this is a game where, they are talented. They are tough players. They will hit you and lay licks, where if Indiana gets out to a large lead, you run the ball, you put your backups in, and try to keep guys healthy for the stretch run because you are a little banged up. So I'm going to go Indiana 37, Penn State 10. So 37-10 Indiana, which
kicking a few field goals. That's another little point of the Maryland game. Nico Radicic continues to perform well when called upon.
He is unbelievable. He doesn't miss.
Right.
I mean, he missed one against Purdue on an icy field that, if there's no ice, he probably hits it, which took away your 69-0 score, which is whatever. That's the only blemish on his career at IU. That's fine. But yeah, it's a game. We'll see if Brendan Franke comes back too. That wasn't mentioned in the injury report, but this is a game where Indiana, you're going to take your points against Penn State, move on.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to take any risks on fourth down unless you absolutely have to. And it's a game where if you start tacking on points and get out to a lead, you're going to take the crowd out of it. That's what's going to happen. And just like Cignetti said all year, there's a point in time in the game, usually in the third quarter, where the will breaks. You saw it against Maryland. You saw it against Illinois, probably a little earlier than that.
Yeah.
And you saw it against Oregon in the fourth quarter after the interception by Isaiah Jones. And you basically have seen it every game. Indiana just breaks your will. They will steal your soul, rip your heart out, whatever it is, at some point. And I do think that you will get a couple of field goals here. And the backups go in, and Indiana goes in and gets their first win at Beaver Stadium, ends that streak, and then moves on with the rest of their season.
Yeah, Kurt Cignetti is rewriting the history books at IU on a weekly basis, so why not do it again this week?
Yeah. So that does it for today's preview podcast. Thank you for listening. So it's just a reminder, we will have our watch party over at Heartwork Brewing starting at noon. Come on over. They have really good handcrafted beer and ciders. They have a lot of TVs, more of a relaxed atmosphere if you have kids and all that stuff. There's video games, pinball, and other things to play as well. Our live Indiana football chat, because basketball plays tomorrow, will move to Friday. I will do that live from somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania, but not State College. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, so we'll have that on Friday, and then keep coming back to HoosierHuddle.com. We have women's basketball tonight, men's basketball tomorrow night, and the college football playoff rankings come out around 8 p.m. tonight on ESPN. You don't have to change your cable or streaming providers because it'll be listed on X. However, they better figure it out before Sunday because IU basketball does play Marquette on ESPN. Although I do think that they had like the ESPN app you could watch with a YouTube TV account, which makes no sense to me. But whatever. Keep coming back, subscribe, like, rate, whatever you do, and we'll see you next week.